Welcome to Scaling Impact, where we decode how entrepreneurs are harnessing the power of the UN Sustainable Development Goals to create remarkable and impactful businesses that drive transformation on a global and local human scale. We explore how sustainability is elevating our human consciousness and catalyzing us to create within constraints. We decipher why now is the biggest entrepreneurial opportunity since the dawn of industrialization and what leaders and entrepreneurs can do to harness the winds of change. I'm Anders Nilsson, global futurist, EO Sydney Impact Champion and father, and your co-host with Lisa Andrews for Scaling Impact.
So it's an absolute pleasure for me to introduce today Franziska Iseli, who is a dear friend of mine as well as a fellow EO member and working on a lot of different things scaling impact. So Franziska, for those that don't know you, I'd love for you to share a little bit about yourself.
Thanks so much for having me, Lisa. I always love chatting to you, and it's such an honor to be here today to have this discussion. And every time we catch up and we have a chat about scaling impact, I actually walk away with some new ideas and thoughts because you're so across this topic, especially when it comes to also innovation. So super excited for today. A little bit about me. I am very passionate about making a positive impact through entrepreneurship. So one of my personal missions and my personal sort of purpose statement is to use entrepreneurship to make a positive impact. And growing up in Switzerland, I moved to Geneva. And I wanted to work for the United Nations in Geneva, studied at the university there. And the reason why I wanted to work for the UN is because I thought that's the one way to make an impact. And I didn't really realize that there are many, many other ways, like as an entrepreneur. And when I then ended up living in Sydney, I started one of my first businesses called Basic Bananas, which is a marketing education organization. And at the very beginning, I was thinking, well, how can I make an impact other than with small business owners? And one of those ways is by using the UN SDGs. Now, they weren't around when I first started, but now to address some of the challenges we have in the world. And then also inspiring other people, businesses we work with, to do the same. So that's sort of the first entry into this work. And then a business of mine, which I started because I love the ocean, is called Oceanlovers. And with Oceanlovers, we're all about making impact and especially educating and mobilizing the masses to help us save our oceans, which is, I think, something we're going to maybe chat about today.
Absolutely. And I do have a pair of Oceanlovers swimmers and I absolutely love them. So excited for others to hear about that and be educated about some of those initiatives as well. I'd love to first ask you a little bit around mindset. And I think back to history and definitely we've come a long way, but a few hundred years ago even, we just thought the ocean was just so big and that we threw a lot of rubbish into the ocean and it was going to last forever and keep us all safe. Where do you think that mindset currently is at now with the global population?
Yeah, and that is definitely a challenge that we've had over, I think plastics only came about in the last sort of 50, 60 years. And when we suddenly realized that we don't have any space for all the plastic waste or any of the other waste, we just started throwing it into the ocean. And so I think in the beginning, it was our mindset back then was that, well, there's so much ocean, what can it harm? And now I feel like there is so much more education, and something that we are passionate about with Oceanlovers too is to educate people more around this. And I feel like now, especially I'm seeing it with younger people, so more our kids, our next generations, they really care and they have a mindset of let's not trash our environment. Let's not trash our oceans. A very cool example actually is we have a kids program that we run through Oceanlovers. It was built by a teacher to run in kindergartens. We do it at no cost. We do it for free to educate people because it's part of our mission. So we have a few kindergartens and preschools in Fiji that are running the program. And our contact in Fiji, who is organizing all these kindergarten educational programs, whenever I catch up with her, she says that Franziska, we go to these outer islands and we teach the kids about plastics and not throwing rubbish into the ocean because that's all they know, because they don't unfortunately have a really good system yet in Fiji. So they just throw everything in the ocean. And she said, now what's happening is that these kids, the kindergarten aged kids, are talking to their parents. And now the parents say to our girl there, to Cynthia, say, hey, our daughter or our son taught us about this plastic waste. So we need to figure out how we go about it. So it's now the kids that are teaching the adults that maybe don't know this information about how to behave. And so I feel like the mindset has shifted from we don't care and let's just throw things in the ocean where we don't ever see it again, to now, oh, actually, we have a lot of challenges. And also another big piece of information and education that is happening is that a lot of people realize that they rely on the ocean and that they rely on fishing possibly and using some of the ocean resources. And if we don't look after them, their livelihoods are very much impacted too.
Actually, on that note, I was actually working with Marine Futures Lab, which are out of the Western University. And they were, looking at how do they create economic livelihood for the people that are fishing and dependent on fish in their areas. And they had this huge big mission to count all the fish in the ocean. And they'd set up all of these underwater cameras, and they were doing machine learning, visual recognition software to be able to count the fish, essentially. And it was pretty cool. We were able to organize a collaboration with Cisco and with GoPro to donate cameras and try and help understand the patterns over time. And I think they were sharing that we reached peak fish in the ocean in about the 70s. And I kind of look at the ocean, and even from satellite, most places on land, you can see the challenge. And so you look at SDG 14, life below water. How much do we actually know that's going on below water? And I guess that impacts so many of us, which is why the education in this is so important.
Yeah, and that work, actually, the Marine Futures Lab, the work that has been done in that space is also to help us visualize what's happening in the oceans, because as you say, it's life below water that we don't really know or maybe even care about because we can't see it. So that kind of work is so crucial, because then we actually can see it, and especially because I feel like if we don't share this information or actually gather the data, then if you're a fisherman living somewhere and you completely rely on fishing, and of course, well, if we come in from the developing world and be like, oh, you can't keep doing this, it's like, well, it's like taking away their entire livelihood. How are they going to survive? So having this data, and then the next phase obviously is to also help them figure out how to either regenerate some of the sea life so that they can continue with their work, or helping them transition into using something else to create money or to create a livelihood. I feel like we live here in this Western world, and even, to be honest, with Oceanlovers, I sometimes feel a bit hypocritical too, because our mission is to make an impact for ocean conservation and to educate people. But at the same time, we also sell surf suits, which is obviously a product that takes energy to make. The product is made from recycled ocean plastic. So that's good, but still it's a product that we sell. So I'm definitely a little bit compromised sometimes, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this too.
Yeah, I think about plastic, just full stop. Like you say, we've only had it for 50 or 60 years, and we've got this disposable mentality in a lot of ways, and just realizing the amount of ocean plastic we have, and there's these big piles of great ocean plastic that are accumulating in different areas around the ocean. And so, like, absolutely, it makes sense. And I talk to businesses all the time about find a really big problem and then create a solution to be able to solve that problem. And one of the things now that I'd love to do more research in, and I'm sure that you are as well, is how do you buy the materials for your products that you know exactly where they're coming from and which ocean pile they're getting cleaned up from, and where is the plastic actually coming from? And then secondary, what are the next effects from that. And I think with scaling impact and this podcast, we're talking about a little less conversation, a little more action. And like you say, knowledge is everything. So how do we continually ask each other and ourselves these questions to learn more about what the current situation is? And even if it's just slightly making it better than it currently is, continuing that journey. And the more that you do, that's a ripple effect that's going to make a bigger difference.
Yeah, it's so true. And it's also true there is a lot of conversation about what are we doing about it. And when I have conversations with our fellow EO members about impact, I love obviously, seeing what people are doing and also what actions we can do collectively, like little things like when we have an EO event, can we not use plastics? Can we work with a caterer that doesn't use plastics, for example, or can we not do plastic bottles? Can we get refillable bottles and encourage people in that way? When it comes to taking action, I feel like with these conversations and even with myself, sometimes it feels sometimes a bit overwhelming. And I remember even growing up when I was at university, and I was studying political science and marketing, and one of the subjects was geopolitics, and I had to do a thesis on something, and I wanted to remember. Obviously, I was very young and whatever, didn't know too much about much, and so I wanted to do a thesis on the oceans. And my teacher remembers it, but what part of the ocean? I'm like, just the whole ocean. And she's like, yeah, but there's so many parts that you could talk about. It's like, I don't care. It's just the whole ocean, because we have the whole ocean needs to be saved. And it's the same now. Sometimes people, and including myself, feel a little bit overwhelmed with, we have so many issues. We have the acidification of the oceans. We have the plastic issue. We have the overfishing issue. There are so many things that needs solving. So where do we even start? And so for specific actions, I feel like if we all just do one little thing, even if that's just a little thing that could be in what we are aiming to do with our businesses too, is to try at least to not use plastic stuff in the office. It doesn't always work. Sometimes, somebody rocks up with a takeaway coffee cup because they forgot their keep cup, but we encourage it at least. And the second thing also that we do, and then other people can do, which we try to do with the Ocean initiative, is to just organize beach cleanups with team members. And again, just little things like that. What we find is when we do beach cleanups, we do one every few months because we are also on the beaches here. We go and the whole team comes. It can just be an hour, and then after we go for a drink. So it's a great team activity. But every time we go, people that we meet along the way, strangers, they come and they say thank you. And I know that thank you, some of the team, they come after like, well, thank you, why don't you just get your hands dirty? But I actually think that this person that says thank you, the next time they have a choice to either trash the beach or to pick something up, they will think about it and they will pick up the trash, because it creates these ripple effects as you talk. So I feel like we can all do a little bit, even though it feels overwhelming. There are little things we can all do that make an impact.
Yeah, and I can definitely see how aligning with impact has been such a core part of your business. And so that's one of the things that I love. And I know that you probably attract really great staff and great clients because of what you stand for. And you're in the branding business as well. So I probably don't need to be sharing that with you. And that's just something that you naturally do, but you do so well.
Yeah, it does make an impact. And as you say, it actually makes an impact for both customers care, but right now even more so than customers, it's all about the team, obviously, because we have a bit of a team shortage here in Australia with people that haven't been able to come into the country. So now a way to be attractive to amazing team members and talent, even from all around the world, if that's a possibility for the business, is to be a really purpose-driven business and doing activities like the ones that I mentioned, and encouraging people to be good and do good, and talking about the UN SDGs and sharing them and doing different impact initiatives. With Oceanlovers, our main UN SDG is number 14, the life below sea. But then we also have different initiatives with Basic Bananas. We have a school in South Africa that we support, and just different things that we do that make the company also attractive to our team members, and then also, of course, customers too.
I guess I wouldn't be a very good futurist if I didn't paint a little bit of a future vision of what I'd love to see and get your thoughts around that. I was thinking about, talking about history, is that hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, most humans would probably only have about 50 to 100 items in their entire lifetime. And now we have about 5 million items in our lifetime, and this whole consumerism phase that humanity is gone through. And I actually think about the material science of that. And I had this concept of just measuring everything that goes in and out of my house to be able to understand how many materials does someone actually need in their life. And for those members with kids, I don't have kids, but I'm sure there's a lot of baby things, and you buy a lot of stuff that, typically you can resell and reuse and hand off and all the rest. But I kind of thought, imagine with all of this ocean plastic and just material science, if you got allocated a certain amount of materials when you were first born, and then that was to last you throughout a lifetime. And so you could break it down, and then you could 3D print it, and you'd grow all of your own food and completely have a sustainable ecosystem in your own home. That would be something that, for me, I could say absolutely the planet is going to be better off for having all of these humans on it. And if we're actually having items that are coming in and out, what's an action is, how are we actually conscious about those? And then how are the items in coming from sources that actually is making the planet better? And then also when it goes out, it makes it better as well. And so definitely what you're doing with the product. And I think you mentioned about that little conflict because it's consumerism where you're selling a product. But I think just that original consciousness of it and being able to do more of that and selling the message, so I can see, how much of it's education as well, to have more conversations like this, which creates more collaborations and more ideas for others to use.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also do, and I think that would be a very interesting study to do, actually, to see what comes in and comes out. And we do also with Oceanlovers recommend not buying the stuff that we sell is durable. So we do recommend that you keep it and you don't need to buy a new thing every few months or weeks. We're very much not into the fast fashion movement, because that is a huge problem we have also on this planet, is fast fashion and buying very cheap stuff that is made usually from non-sustainable sources, and then it doesn't last, and then it goes to landfill. A lot of fashion goes to landfill, and it's actually something that Patagonia did. It was a bit of a marketing branding stunt, and it's pretty cool. I remember when it was a few years ago, it was Black Friday, or was it Black Friday? I think in Cyber Monday in the US, I think that it's called. And that's the days when everyone discounts everything and everybody goes shopping crazy, buying stuff that they don't need. And so Patagonia did a campaign on those days, and they said, instead of buying stuff, go outside and don't buy stuff from us. And also anything that you buy from Patagonia, you can return back to Patagonia if you don't want it anymore, and they will reuse some of the materials. So a lot of the stuff doesn't end in landfill, which is really cool, actually. But on your study, the in and out, and what are all the things that we have, and maybe being born with a bit of a bank of how much we need or don't need would be great. We are in the middle of a move right now, and all the boxes of stuff that are ready to be moved. And I looked at it actually this morning. I had this conversation with Tom, and I said, what is going on? We have so much stuff. There's 5 of us, and there's like 30 boxes or something. I said to Tommy, there are people that live out of one box or one suitcase. Imagine how cool that would be. But then we live in this consumerism society that we need to actually, this is something that we need to consider. And I am a little bit on a personal mission this year. I haven't shared with anyone that, and so far I've been good. I haven't bought a thing, but I'm trying to not buy a thing if possible this year in terms of wearing clothes and things, because we really don't need more. And if I do buy something in the future, then it will have to be something that is not fast fashion. So it's something that is made from sustainable sources and will last.
Sounds like we should bring back a swap party and we'll all just bring some boxes of stuff and have a little share and we can shop from each other maybe. I actually I've been doing a similar thing where my auntie, we actually support 1 million women, and my auntie has just bought a sewing kit from them. I didn't realize that's something that they did. And so she's put up on Facebook and saying, if anyone needs some sewing help, let me know. And I thought, actually, I could probably remake clothes or redesign clothes from what I've actually got and make them a little bit cooler or do something different. It's just like thinking of those extra different ways of how you might be able to have a little bit of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that I always do is when I go to different countries traveling, I always bring a bag of stuff that I think they might want. So when we go to Fiji, for example, I have a whole bag of baby clothes that they grow out so quickly of their clothing. And I met this woman that has a newborn, and then she got all the clothes which she was grateful for. But obviously we still, this is where the conflict is internally within me, and just talking this out loud with you, we are trying to be good. Then at the same time, we also sell a product. But this is where it comes back to also the education. So for us, the next collection we're working on is called Under the Sea, and it's coming out in a few weeks. And each of the prints, we have different prints, and each of the prints on the swimwear and the surf suits has a species under the sea that is in danger of extinction. So there's one on sharks, there's a turtle one, there's a coral one, and then each of the pieces comes with education too. Talks about the different shark species and what we can do about it, about this specific turtle, about the different corals and what we can do about it, just information and what we can do about it. And some part of our collection is also for kids. So we want kids again to carry this conversation forward, so that when let's say they wear a shark print, they might say to their friend, hey, did you know, look, there's a lemon shark on here, and this is, what their story is, and this is what we should do about it because they are actually in danger of extinction. So it's on one side, we are encouraging, of course, consumerism, if you want to call it that. But then on the other side, we also, if people must buy something, we want them to buy something sustainable, and also talk about the challenges that we are faced with at the moment.
That's such a nice model to be able to carry forward as well. I'm just wondering with eOcean and the initiatives there of how you've been able to scale the impact and what you'd love to achieve through eOcean.
Yeah, so with eOcean, it's been a work in progress for a while, and now it's feel like people are starting to jump on board. And I actually had a call yesterday with a member in Miami, and she wants to run an eOcean event in Miami, and there's someone in Nigeria, someone in Kenya, there's different people around the world that are jumping on board. So the whole purpose of eOcean is to leverage our network of members to clean up our waterways. So it can be a beach, can be a river, can be anywhere. And it's just a way to, one, either get the chapter together to do something good, or two, to get the teams that each individual EU member, a lot of EU members have team members, and they're looking for ways to do good stuff with them. So it's a very easy way to just say, hey, Friday afternoon, we're going to go do a beach cleanup for 45 minutes, and then we'll go for a drink or dinner. And so we want to encourage that behavior. And we have resources available that we've created through EO Sydney, like ways to promote the event. And we have branded gloves with eOcean and a few little sustainable merchandise that people can use to run these events. And the whole objective of this whole initiative is for it to become a thing. So we want it to become a thing that is just, yeah, of course, we're doing an eOcean event at least once a year to get people on board and to go do our bit. And to, the thing with the impact is, when coming back to mindset, is we're doing good, but impact also makes people feel good. And that's something that you would have probably noticed you work with a lot of impactful people. When you do good, it not only does good for the world or people or whoever you're impacting, but also you feel good. So this is a way for companies and business owners to also feel good about maybe the business are a lot at the root of issues that we have in the world. So how do we offset some of that, and how do we do good? Makes people feel good, and it does something for the world.
It's definitely positive momentum, and I'm hearing collaboration as well. And that's one of the things I love about EO is there's just so many members, and I'd love to know other members that are working on ocean initiatives or that are doing things great in this area to actually collaborate. Imagine the power of banding together in each of the 17 SDGs and being able to do even more for the ocean. I was just thinking about some of the other business that I know about already. And so we're just starting conversations and talking about overfishing. And there's an incredible organization out of the US that are doing a dynamic fishing index. And what they want to do is create a data platform so that when there's overfishing, the little index go off, but then the fishermen are paid to collect data instead of fish, so they can still go home and have money to feed their family each day. And so just little things like that of utilizing technology. I know the Great Barrier Reef Legacy I'm working with, and we're creating a biobank of all of the coral species. And so one of the challenges for the ocean is that we're having all these coral bleaching. And so coral bleaching is such a big problem, and we've got 800 species of coral in the world, and 400 of those species are actually on the Great Barrier Reef here in Australia. And how do you actually keep the diversity of the coral reefs with these bleaching events? And so we're actually looking at collecting each of those species of coral and putting them in a biobank on land, similar to the seed bank in Norway, to be able to preserve the biodiversity of the ocean. So I think of some of those different projects and I think, wow, let's do an e-ocean initiative on the Great Barrier Reef and help promote what they're actually doing with Great Barrier Reef Legacy, or with the other ocean dynamic fishing index company, go and do an e-ocean event there, and let's catalyze some attention around those businesses as well. So I guess that one of my actions now is a little bit of a call out to EO members that are working in ocean, and how do we actually help support the initiatives that they're doing as well.
I love that, and I also love the Great Barrier Reef project that you've told me about. It is all about collaboration. I'm speaking to also a NEO member in Germany, and he's very much about